So I made it to Rectortown, Virginia. Now the house is gone, unfortunately, but that house right there is a replica of what was here. And Colonel Mosby was invited for dinner with his wife, and they dined in that house. Union cavalry got wind of Mosby being in the area. One of the officers shot through the back window. It's a private residence right now, so I'm not going to go in there. Shot through the back window and hit Mosby in the side. They broke in to the house. The officer one of the officers that was there, I'm not sure if it's the one that made the shot, didn't recognize Mosby because Mosby finally cleaned up for dinner and didn't look like some of the sketches that they were looking for, and deemed that the shot that he took to his side was mortal. Turned out that it wasn't. Mosby got better about 2 months later and was back out raiding again. So I'm going to take you now to the site where the lot happened, and I'll explain more of that when I get there. Okay, so we are at the site of the lot. What is the lot? The lot was basically a lottery for execution. Turns out that in early 1864, General Sheridan captured 7 of Mosby's men in Front Royal, Virginia, which is about 30 miles down those tracks. This track here is the same track that went through the mill, or it goes by the mill I did the other day. So this building, as you can see, it's been refaced a couple of times, but those bricks right here are the originals. Inside this is also a museum now, owned by one private individual, who doesn't seem to be here right now. But anyway, so the lot. 7 of Mosby's men were hanged. A note tagged to them saying, basically, this is what was going to happen to all traitors of the Union. Mosby, in return, a couple of months later, or maybe a few weeks later, I really can't remember right now, I don't have my notes in front of me, I'm doing all this off the top of my head, captured about 12 Union soldiers and brought them here, and they were basically under house arrest and siege inside this building. So he had, out of the, I think it was 12 or 14 Union prisoners. I'm gonna walk down this way. So he had 14 total straws, 7 long, 7 short. The prisoners then drew straws. Short straw, you're gonna get hanged. Turns out that one of the 7 was a 12-year-old drummer boy. He was pardoned, and another person was selected via the draw, and that person then was selected to be executed. There's a whole horse-drawn buggy and another plow. This guy has a bunch of stuff here. It's really cool. Wish it was open and I could take you guys in. But this is where it happened. Then, it was either later that day or the next day, Mosby then rallied the 7 prisoners that were, excuse me, there's a lube burp for you. Rallied 7 prisoners that were to be executed and tied them up chain gang style via rope and walked them to the execution site. I'm going to take you to where I think the execution site happened. Some people have said it's on Route 340 north above Berryville, Virginia. I disagree, because Berryville, Virginia And the site where some people say that it happened is just way too far from here. That is a trek. And to transport 7 prisoners to be executed that far with Union soldiers all around just doesn't make any sense, because they would have gotten caught on that to go probably 18 miles walking to that site. So next I'm going to take you to the place where, after a lot of research, I think the execution happened. So let's move on. And still at the site here. For those of you that don't, or kind of doubting maybe that I'm at the right place where it happened, I walked around the other side of the building and found this. Rectortown, McClellan's demise, and Mosby's raffle, otherwise known as the lot. And it goes in that this all happened November 6th, 1864. That's when the raffle happened. So Sheridan's execution of Mosby's Rangers happened a couple months prior to that. And as you can see, this is the same building. And there's the buggy and other antique farming pieces of equipment that I showed just a little bit ago. So, okay. Now I'm going to get back into the car and go to where I think the execution site is. Okay. So here's the general area where I think it happened. Now, granted, probably a lot of these trees weren't around during that time, but if you look that direction, beyond that first tree line, you're going to see a V there. That is called Ashby's Gap, and Route 50 runs through there, which still at that time was a major thoroughfare for troop and cargo transportation. The tracks in Rectortown is, as how they say, the flow cries. Jesus Christ, I fucking suck. As the crow flies, is probably about 4 miles that way. So this whole area, during any proper time of day, was heavily traveled. So what happens is that Mosby brings the 7 people to be executed up here. However, only 3 were executed. 3 of them tried to escape. 1 was successful in escaping. 2, during the escape, were shot in the head, thought to be dead, but then they survived. Another noticed on one of the Rangers a Freemason pin, and that individual was also a Freemason. So he was automatically pardoned from the execution at that time and was then sent to some other POW camp, but he was not executed at all. So out of the 7, only 3 were hanged. A note was then pinned to them by Mosby, said measure for measure. That was then sometime later found by Sheridan, or one of Sheridan's scouts, saw the 3 of them hung by a tree, took the note. Later Mosby made a letter to Sheridan requesting that any future prisoners caught by one another be treated humanely and not executed. That was agreed to by Sheridan, and then that was basically it. Maybe that was in November of 1864. The war ended April of 65, so not that much time later the Civil War was over. Again, Mosby was one of the last ones to surrender in Salem, Virginia. Or not really surrender, they just disbanded. He was later pardoned about a year later after the war ended, and resumed to take up his law practice in Warrenton, which is where I'm heading to next, is Warrenton, Virginia.